Okay, dude. We have to talk about it at least briefly. Like, there's a lot of different theories about Fel. Like, the fact that it's green and that it can like morph and change life, that has to be like majorly significant, right? Like the actual use of Fel, I understand in a lot of cases is like brutal and we like see it taking life out of things, but Fel can also like shape and mold and change life. It's almost like a fucking what the fuck is it? It's so weird. I mean, I get that it's like chaos and it's like all magics and stuff or whatever, but it's just like something about it seems like I don't know. I feel like we're still like misunderstanding something about Fel, or maybe it really is just like the proper combination of like flame and shadow. But the thing is like, why is Fel different from Shadow Flame? Like, what is the difference there? Is it because the Shadow and Shadow Flame is like void energy, and like the Shadow and Fel is like, I mean, is there like a difference? I mean, it is a very chaotic magic just in nature, right? Fel is supposed to be like all the different like magics kind of like combined together, I guess. And they're all coexisting in a very chaotic form, but it works. It's like, what is Arcane then? What is Arcane in terms of like comparing it to Void? I guess the idea of Arcane, and like I said, well, at least the idea of order is division. Right, so you split it up into different aspects, Arcane, Frost, Fire, but it's all at its core like the same thing. But I think that you'll notice that like Arcane magic typically has the capacity to divide. Like for example, during the Argus fight, when Aman'Thul blasts Argus with his time magic, it splits him into a bunch of different constellar designates, and each one has a weakness. And Aman'Thul, it's actually an unused voice line, but Aman'Thul commands Norgannon to use his keen senses to fucking expose their weakness or whatever. And Norgannon essentially like identifies what the weakness of all of them are, like instantly, which is kind of terrifying. And like for instance, if the Holy One, right, you attack it with holy magic, it takes like 5x damage or something like that. So it identified the actual weakness in them. But that showed me that like arcane magic in this use case, it would seem has the capacity to divide and split, which is kind of the opposite of what Fel does, where Fel is all magic kind of twisted together in this chaotic form that doesn't divide things, but either like destroys it completely or melds into it and kind of like assimilates to it, which is, it just changes it. So like Fel magic is chaos and it can be used destructively, yes, but I would like to also throw out there that I've seen Arcane be used in a very sinister and similar fashion to Fel. If you guys don't remember this, there was a questline from Legion. The whole questline about Illidan is like super relevant. And part of the questline has you at Blackrook Hold, where you're going through days where Illidan was just a powerful sorcerer. This is before he took on the Fel. And he literally, using arcane magic, sucks the life out of multiple mages in front of him in order to empower himself, killing them just like what Fel does. So the magic itself does not necessarily dictate the use. Keep that in mind. That's to say that even though Fel and Arcane are inherently very different, they can be used in exactly the same ways sometimes. And that just means that like the idea that Fel is just inherently like an evil thing or like has evil capacity might not necessarily be true. It's just a different kind of magic that's been deemed bad because, let's be honest, it's antithetical to order. That's why it's bad. That's the only reason demons are probably even looked at as bad. Like, don't take this the wrong way, but like there's a lot of demons that are pretty chill. Gonna be honest. Yeah, when they have their orders and they're going and like fucking laying siege to a world, they're probably not gonna be very chill because they're literally at war. But like, you know, we have good warlocks. They use Fel all the time. It's funny you asked that, Hexalon, because actually I do think that the most chill example of demons actually is, what do they call them? The succubus and the other thing. Incubus. There's actually a quest line, I can't remember what it's from. It's gotta be from the Warlock, like, class order hall. It was in the Black Temple. I remember going there. You're like working with the Shivara who, there's like demons missing or something, and she's like worried about them. She's like genuinely like distraught that they're gone. And we like go to find them for her and bring her back, and she's like very just like great. Is that part of the Green Fire quest? Yeah. She's like very grateful for it, and she just like expresses gratitude in a manner that you just don't get to see with like a lot of demons. And it's just like a very interesting like look into like, wow, that was very human of you, you know, like very civil of you. And I think that that there's probably a lot more of that exists than what we realize. But when you're on a fucking crusade to cleanse the fucking universe, whether it's correct or not, I can understand why they behave the way that they do, especially if Fel has a capacity to drive things into a frenzy. But it sounds like it's just like it really makes things disorderly. It's just chaos, right? We're seeing in the dream, we're seeing life do the same thing. I'm literally seeing dream energies surge out and cause life to go on chaotic rampages against itself. And Fel is nowhere around. You know what I mean? So different magics, once again, can cause similar phenomenon to occur. And I think that that's like a really important thing to recognize, because I think that it's going to come out to be that like, even though life seems to be ordered, there is a very real chance that life, because it is inherently and naturally chaotic, is working with the forces of chaos. And we haven't maybe necessarily realized it. Because like I said, life does not want to be controlled. Life is not meant to be controlled. Bad things happen when life gets controlled and ordered. And the dream is an example of that. It's kind of weird that we have a literal shadow and flame being used here, which is what Fel is described as. It's very important, I think, that we are able to recognize the difference. And I wonder, like, was Deathwing simply trying to recreate something that was beyond his comprehension? The shadow flame maybe is a perversion of what Fel really is. Because I'm not so sure that Fel, like, incorporates, like, Fel is so interesting because it cannot take unto itself any light, nor can it take unto itself any void. If they come into contact, it explodes. So those magics do not go together at all. To be honest, I don't really think there's many magics that do work with Fel. Like maybe Shadow, but at the same time, like, what is death compared to the void when it comes to Shadow? I mean, like, I don't know. Shadow Flame, Void and Flame, maybe Life and Flame is Fel. I mean, Shadow Flame is not powered, as far as I can tell, directly from the power of a soul, is it? Maybe that's the key distinction, is that Fel is fueled by the most potent power source probably in the universe. What is Shadow Flame compared to that? Is it the same? It's just void-infused flame or something, no? Right, like it's just a mixture, but I don't know if it's truly the same thing. Maybe what it suggests is that you can't just take two magics and put them together and expect it to just make a thing. Maybe there's more to it. Maybe Fel is not simply just flame and shadow. Maybe it's something beyond that. Maybe there is a power that... Maybe it suggests that Sargeras wielded a power that was beyond... I mean, clearly... Look, like, Deathwing is cool and all, but, like, Deathwing is not going to have the same capacity for magic as Sargeras. Like, it's just, like, fucking apples to oranges. That's not a comparison. So, I don't know. That's another interesting thing is demons. Like, Shadow Flame is not turning things into demons. It doesn't have the same effect. Which I think just goes to show, like, once again, Fel is something very, like, unique. It's not the same thing. Didn't you say Fel was all magic combined? That's, like, allegedly what it is. We could just look it up. It's all magical schools. So, for instance, in that Argus fight, when he divides Argus up into all those pieces, I can attack any of them with Chaos Bolt, and it will do maximum damage to anything. Because every affinity is weak to Chaos. In that regard. This is another, like, this is like a, again, yeah, this is just like, it all feeds into how the magics are and how cosmic forces bleed together. That things are not strictly separated in the way that the Titans want you to see it. And I think that's also one of the biggest fucking themes in all of the history of World of Warcraft, is that there is like duality and a connection between things that at first glance might appear to be directly opposing forces. But once you look into it, it's not that hard to realize that like life is dependent on death and vice versa. That like chaos and order cannot exist singularly. Like that light and shadow are not, they're not, like, I have yet to see a battle between fucking void forces and light forces, even on a micro scale. Like, I just don't fucking see that. Like, so I'm waiting for like, when are these big opposing forces gonna come in opposition to one another? And it just like, it seems to be like expressed through the Titan conflict. Like, that should apparently happen at midnight, but, and I get it, but the truth is this: if the light wins, it is written, at least from the perspective of the Titans, that no matter what, the light will fade to void. And if it doesn't, then that means we're gonna get fucked by the forces of the light, because they're not gonna have anything to fight anymore. It's why Chris Metzen comes up on the stage and says, the force of the light will push the void back. And then he says something along the lines of, and then things might just spiral wildly out of control. And it's like, okay, wonder what that means. Because if we banish the forces of the void, which leads to the Titans returning, yeah, I'm not so sure. It's not gonna be a good thing.